मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
We were looking at nonlinear problems in the last class, and we said that we will continue with the nonlinear analysis. We identified the type of problems which could be called as nonlinear, and we said that geometric material nonlinearities and due to varying boundary conditions like contact would induce a problem to become nonlinear, right. That is where we stopped, and we have to go further with nonlinearities. As all of you know that many of the manufacturing problems especially are problems which invoke nonlinear analysis, or in other words you have to carry forward this analysis in order to simulate, say for example, the manufacturing process. We have already seen examples of it. Okay, we saw a welding example right in the beginning. We also saw forging and so on. Though without going into details, because that topic of simulation, complete understanding of the simulation of manufacturing process is a very big affair, because you have to know so much about plasticity, especially finite deformation, large deformation, plasticity and so on. So I am not going to go into the details of all these aspects, but at least I want to tell you, given a package, okay, what are the things that you should look for, or what are the things that you have to know in order to, for example, run a nonlinear problem. So my emphasis in this course is going to be only from that angle, but not from the angle of development of a finite element code itself as far as nonlinear analysis is concerned, basically because of the continuum mechanics background that is required in order to do that is very high. Okay? But nevertheless, without losing rigor, without losing what is to be known, in order to run it, we will carry forward our study on nonlinear analysis. Okay? Now, we identified from our physical arguments, we identified lot of things. You remember that we identified, when we looked at say load deflection curve, that the curve is nonlinear. Okay? This we identified. So we identified that if you want to go from here to here, this position, okay, if you want to go from one position to the other, we identified that is this is the load that I want to achieve, okay, for a particular step, a particular increment. Then I said that from the previous increment at n, when I go to n plus 1, okay, I do an iterative procedure in order that we reach that point and until convergence takes place. Putting it mathematically, I can say that the error psi say at n plus 1 at say an iteration I is equal to some internal loads, which is what is the matrix that we used, capital U, right, for the displacements, capital U, right. Yeah, long ago we used the vector for the complete degrees of freedom U. So you can say that the error is say the internal forces minus the externally applied forces. Externally applied forces can be a function of displacement or need not be a function of displacement. Let us say that for the time being we say that it is not a function of displacement and say that f say n plus 1. Is that clear? Okay. So what is this? This is the internal forces. The reason for it, is the presence of stresses. Is the presence of stresses. Okay, it's very simple to see what it is. How do you see that? Even from our virtual work principle, you can see that. Say, remember what is the equation we wrote? Integral delta epsilon transpose sigma dV. We started something like that in our previous case. Remember that? That's how, okay, internal virtual work and external virtual work, when we did that, we had a term delta epsilon transpose sigma, and delta epsilon transpose can be written as delta U transpose, okay, B transpose sigma dV, or delta D transpose rather, B transpose sigma dV in finite element terminology, right? Go back and refer to this, and so you see that delta D transpose B transpose sigma dV. Now look at this term now. This looks like this is a force and that is the displacement. This is the virtual displacement and this is the force. Okay, so you can easily identify that B transpose sigma dV would be an internal force. Actually, from here only we get our famous stiffness matrix. Sigma is substituted in terms of what? Simple, dB. Okay, D into epsilon, epsilon is BU. That's all we get. Okay, so this is the first term. So what is this? This is nothing but this P which I have put here. Okay, B transpose sigma dV minus F. What is F? F is the load that is applied, right? So this is Fn, Fn plus 1, right? Now what I am going to do is I am going to linearize, note the word. This is one of the most famous words in nonlinear finite element, linearization. Okay, linearize about this point, say I. For the first step, about say n, where I is equal to 0. What do I mean by linearization? Linearization simply means that I am going to write down a Taylor series approximation about that point, okay, about this point, say for example, or about this point. I am going to Taylor series approximation, I am going to write down, stopping it after the first term, right? Taylor series approximation, you can keep on writing higher order terms, d squared y by dx squared, 1 by 2 d squared y by dx squared, and so on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to linearize, which means that I'm going to stop with the first term. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that if I have to go to say psi I plus 1 n plus 1, this is equal to psi I at n plus 1 plus what's it, dou psi by dou, say let me limit first to one element, okay, though it is u, just because we did the similar thing. So d is what is the corresponding degrees of freedom for one element. So dou d, okay, dou psi by dou d displacements, right? You can write it for dou u, but then it will be for the complete system, okay, dou d into say delta d, where dou psi by dou d is taken at the point I, okay, this means iteration and this means increment. Okay, so that is the Taylor series approximation about psi plus 1 n plus 1. That is, in other words, I obtained the error at I plus 1 through the error at I, or from the error at I. Okay, so this is equated to 0. This is called linearization. it won't be 0. Okay, the error won't disappear because I have only taken the first term. If I keep calculating all terms 1 by 2 psi squared dou squared psi and so on, okay, it may go to 0, but since I have stopped with the first term, it will not go to 0. Is that clear? Okay, this will not go to 0. So, but that, in other words, when I go from I to I plus 1, there is a possible chance, there is a good chance of an error. Okay, but the error may disappear as my I keeps increasing. Is it clear? As my I keeps increasing, the error will come down. Okay, so in other words, what does this step physically mean? Physically, simply, it means that get the slope at that point, because what is dou psi by dou d from here? It is simply dou p by dou d. What is dou p by dou d? At I, it is nothing but the slope. P versus d, dou p by dou d is nothing but the slope. Is it clear? Okay. So, I get the slope at this point and call this slope as tangent stiffness. So, this term here is called as tangent stiffness or KT. Is it clear? We call this as tangent stiffness or KT. Is it clear? Okay. Now, how do I get here in this term? How do I get this? This is very simple. So for 1D, I can very easily understand what's happening. It's just the slope at that point. Okay. What is it here? Say, suppose I say that B transpose TV, that's the error term, minus say F, what would be my stiffness matrix? What would be my stiffness matrix? So I have to say that dou psi by dou d or dou epsilon is equal to into delta epsilon or delta d is equal to 0. Right? No? Okay. 1 minute. Let me extend this. Let me come back here. If you don't understand, I will come back here and then go to that problem. Just a second. I skipped one step. So let me make the step clear so that if there is a problem, you can easily understand. Okay. Let me remove this for a minute. Let me extend it to get the from physical to mathematical picture. What does this equation signify? It signifies that KT delta D is equal to minus psi I n plus 1, right, is equal to minus psi I n plus 1, isn't it? Yes. What is psi I n plus 1? Get it from this equation here, the first equation. Okay. Yeah, but minus of that, so Fn plus 1 minus P. So this is equal to Fn plus 1 minus P, let me call this as I, say n plus 1, right, that is the error term, right. So in other words, what is that you get out of it? I get delta D by solving it, because I know the right hand side, I know KT, okay. KT is right now I know it because just the for 1D case is just the slope of the stress strain curve. So KT I know, so KT into delta D is equal to Fn plus 1 minus Pi n plus 1, right, simple. Is it clear? Any questions? Okay. Now, so let me say that I start from say I is equal to 0, that means I am here, right. I calculate it and calculate kt at that point, calculate delta d, find out the error at that point after solving. My error keeps decreasing, that we had discussed in the last class itself. So when my error is very low, or in other words when I say that it is converged, I would stop calculating further delta d's. Or in other words, in one increment, my delta d, what is delta d here? Say for example, this is the first delta d, okay, this is my second delta d, and so on. That's first, that's the second one, and so on, right. So I keep summing up these delta d's, so that at the end of my iterative process, in other words at the end of my convergence, I would be able to get the solution for the force at n plus 1, right. So the total delta d is equal to delta d1 plus delta d2 and so on. This is for a particular step. Okay. We have not come to stress, I will come to that in a minute. Okay. Before we go there, because 1D is always easy to understand, you may feel that we do not understand multi-axial case because it is very simple. So I want to just jump right ahead to a multi-axial situation and see how the same stiffness matrix is generated for multi-axial case, right. Okay. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Now I can write down in that case psi is equal to integral B transpose sigma dV now minus say f. All of them are vectors, please note that all these guys are vectors. Okay. The psi is a vector. If you want, I have to put all everywhere, but I think by this time you should be quite clear. Right. Now, what is it that I do now? I do a linearization. Okay, I do a linearization. So I say that psi plus say delta psi is equal to 0, where delta psi is, that is obtained by my first linearization. So that is delta dou of psi by dou d into delta d is equal to 0. That is psi plus dou psi by dou d into delta d is equal to 0. Okay. Please note that this will be a matrix dou psi 1 by dou d1, dou psi 1 by, what is it, if you expand this, it is a complete expansion. So dou 1 by dou d1 into delta d1 plus 1 2 delta d2 and so on, then dou here 2 1 and so on. So in other words, both of them being vectors, I get here, when I differentiate this, I get a matrix here, and that is the KT matrix. There in 1D it was one value, because delta D was only one value. In this, from this figure, the delta D was only one value. Now delta D is, even for an element, is not one value, right? And so it's a vector. This is a vector. So this becomes a matrix, where KTij can be said as something like that. Is that clear? I mean, it's nothing but Taylor series with the number of variables, d1, d2, d3, etc. Right? Yeah? Any questions? Okay. Now, how do I do this trick here? How do I do that trick there? Or how do I get now the KT matrix knowing this? That's all. Yeah. Any clues? Simple. Dou sigma by dou epsilon into dou epsilon by dou d into delta d, because now you can look at this whole thing as a function of sigma, right? So this term here, when I apply it to this term, becomes integral v b transpose dou sigma by dou epsilon, because sigma is a function of epsilon, we know it. That is the constitutive equation. Dou sigma by dou epsilon into dou epsilon by dou d. This also we know, because strain is a function of displacement, into delta d. Is it clear? No? Exactly, that is the KT matrix. Okay, this is what is inside here, is the KT matrix. Okay, what is dou epsilon by dou d? What is this? What is that? From finite element. Yeah, B matrix. Epsilon is B times T. Yeah, any questions? Right? B matrix. So B transpose dou sigma by dou epsilon to B dV, period. Very simple. Is that clear? Now the whole important thing here is, what is this? This is nothing but this is what is my K matrix, KT matrix. The whole important thing here is that recognize what introduces nonlinearity. Look at that equation. What is that? What is that which induces nonlinearity here? This dou sigma by dou epsilon. For example, if you are doing a elastoplastic problem, this is called as DEP, elastoplastic. If you are doing a linear problem, you can still solve it as a nonlinear problem. Nothing wrong. That dou sigma by dou epsilon, what will that be? D. That's all. Very good. So it becomes just D, and so B transpose DB it will become, and that's the known equation for us. So in this case, it becomes B transpose DEP B dV delta D. Is that clear? Any questions? Right. So in the whole of, there are two important issues in the whole of nonlinear analysis. Of course, apart from convergence, whatever I have taught from now on. One is the relationship between sigma and epsilon, or in other words, dou sigma by dou epsilon. What is it? Okay. In fact, people call this with various names. One of the names in which, by which people call this is Jacobian. They say material Jacobian or Jacobian. Okay, dou sigma by dou epsilon. I don't know how that name came about, but still people sometimes call this as Jacobian. In other words, that's the whole advantage of nonlinear finite element, and that is why packages like Abacus has, say, a routine called UMAT. Okay, so the first issue is KT formation. Please note that from one type of nonlinearity, nonlinear material behavior, to another type of nonlinear material behavior, the fellow who changes is this chap. Is it clear? He is the chap who changes. If you know how to calculate him, you can easily handle the material behavior. Is it clear? Okay, we will come back and look at an elastoplastic analysis later, but that is the first thing. There is one more issue, important issue. So now, okay, before we go to that issue, what we do is we calculate tangent stiffness matrix using this. We calculate delta D each time, keep adding delta D, look at the error. Now the error psi, as I told you, is a vector. Is a vector. So there is no one value. Here in this case, 1D case, it was so beautiful. Because there was only one value, you said that when that value goes to a very small value, stop the program. You know, that's what you said, right? But in this case, the error term is not one value, because it's a vector. For one element, it may be, there may be 8 terms if it's a 4-noded, say, a plane element. But if you look at the complete problem, then that's equal to the degrees of freedom for the problem. Right? It is equal to the degrees of freedom for the problem. So we should have a method of saying that convergence has been achieved. How do you do that? It's very simple. You take what is called as the norm of psi, this vector. Okay. So what is it? It is denoted by like that. Norm of psi is denoted by that 2 lines. Okay. And that is nothing but root of psi I dot psi I. So root of that is sigma of psi I, of course you know that, or sigma if you want to write sigma of psi I, so root of it. That will give you the norm. What you do is you calculate the norm in the first step, or the first iteration. Let me say that norm is let me say that norm is 0. Very first step I calculate, or very first iteration I calculate. So I keep on calculating this norm during every increment. I keep on calculating that, and say that the convergence for this particular step has been achieved, or first for this increment has been achieved when this norm multiplied by a tolerance value is less than the current norm. The current norm reduces to a value which is less than a tolerance times the initial first norm, then I say convergence has been achieved. And this tolerance is usually 10 to the power of minus 6, because for Newton-Raphson iteration 10 to the power of minus 6 to, it varies from problem to problem. If you want to have a tight convergence, then it's about 10 to the power of minus 6. But if you want to lose convergence, which you may get into problems because the solution may drift, then it may be 10 to the power of minus 3 is used. Okay, usually say in many packages the default value is 10 to the power of minus 6, and you may not be, or you don't usually change it unless you are a ace nonlinear man, or else you are not going to change it those things. Okay. So with this, let us summarize the steps. What are the steps? I will give you 1 minute to think about it, and I will summarize all the steps. Okay. There I am going to hit upon another important issue. Okay, I am going to hit upon another important issue. Sorry. Can you summarize? How do we start? We start the big loop, outside loop, right? So I start with the, what do I do? First step is what? Is to increment the load, right? So I break the total load into a number of smaller loads. I said that, right? So first I start with an increment of the total load or a fraction of the total load. Okay, I call this, say, as delta F1. So apply delta F1. Now how do you now fraction this load? This becomes a headache. See, if the total load is 1000, I may fraction, say for a problem, say 1000 or 10,000 newtons, I may be applying 200 as the first load. For a problem which may not withstand, or for a load or for a component which may not withstand that kind of load, I may apply only 10, say for example for biological materials, I apply some 10. Okay, in which case my first load may be 1 Newton. So it's not very easy, or there is no vehicle, for you to talk to the program as to how much you have to apply the load. There is no vehicle. You can't say first, you can't say every time, especially when you are using software like ANSYS or Abacus. You can't keep on telling that now today nonlinear analysis is available in lot more packages like IDEAS, ANSYS and all these packages, but you can't keep on telling that first step you apply this much, second step more than that, and so on, because you are also restricting certain things. I will come to that in a minute. Okay, but before that I need a vehicle to tell the software as to how much the load has to be applied, okay, for each of the increment. So what I do is to normalize the loads by 1. I will say that, okay, whatever even if it is 10,000, the load is normalized by 1. That means that apply 0.1 when I say it is 0.1 of 10,000. Okay, if it is 200, 0.1 of 200, and so on. This normalized value I give a name called time. Okay, so the it's a pseudo time. This time is actually not a time but a pseudo time. So I say that I apply the total load of say 10,000 in 1 second. This has no meaning, okay, with an increment of 0.1 seconds. What do I mean? I mean that my increment of 0.1 second means that at the end of 0.1, or the first, say for example first increment, I apply 0.1 of 10,000. Okay, so time is a vehicle of language to talk about the load application. Time has nothing to do with the actual problem. It's not a dynamic problem. It is a static problem. Okay, it's not a dynamic problem, but still we talk about time basically because it's easier to say that and generalize it over a number of problems, right. So if I say 1000 and say 0.1 seconds, 1000's 0.1 second is 0.1 of 1000, that is the load I apply. So in both cases I will complete the load when I reach 1 second. Yeah, you do not understand. Okay, now what we do is we normalize the application of load, right. Say for example, I see for a problem there can be a different amount of load. For a problem there can be 1000 or say 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is. Okay, now I want to run a general purpose program. I can't, or I do not want to say for this problem apply first 100, later apply 200, 300 and so on. Okay, and then for this problem I do not want to say first apply 1000, then 2000, 3000 and so on. Okay. So, what I do is I normalize them in a scale of 1, right, and I call that scale as time. Note this carefully, I call that scale as time. So, when I say time step, it actually means load step. Okay. So, in other words, in a time scale of 1 second, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, okay, I apply for one problem 0 to 10,000, from here 0 to 10,000, and for another problem I apply from 0 to 5,000, for another problem 0 to 1000 and so on, because I have normalized it to scale from 0 to 1. What is the name I give to the scale? I call the scale as time scale, right. Is it clear? Okay. Because why do I call it like this? Because it is anyway a static problem. Okay, slowly apply the load. There is a big difference between dynamic problem and static problem. Suppose I hit like this, okay, I hit it, it is a dynamic problem, okay, whereas I just slowly apply a load here, it is a static problem. So, what we are doing here now is a static problem. So, I slowly apply the load in an incremental fashion, right, and hence I give a pseudo time. This time has no meaning, it's just the scale is called the time. So, now I say start with 0.1 second, 0.1, okay, for every problem I can say start with 0.1, then for the first problem it will be 1000, if it is 10,000, for 5,000 it will be 500 and so on. Is it clear? So, I will not talk about now the load step at all, I will talk about time step. The time step will automatically get converted into an appropriate load step, okay, depending upon this normalization. Now, what is the advantage of this? The advantage is very simple. We have talked about convergence, right, and it is very obvious looking at a figure like this, that if I take a very large step, okay, I would have difficulty of convergence. What does it mean? It means that when I move in smaller steps, okay, then my linearization works better. Suppose I take a big step from here to here, then I have to keep on working for a number of increments. I may or may not get convergence, there may be divergence also. Suppose the curve is like this, then there are problems of divergence. What does it mean? It means that I may not converge. Okay, there are a lot of mathematically lot of issues, but let me say that the time step is important for, or load step is important for, both of them are synonymous, load step or time step, both of them are synonymous, is important for convergence. Now, that does not mean I can keep on applying not 1 all the time, right, because I will take then not 1 by not 1 to reach 1 by, that is 10,000 times I have to apply the load. So, what do I do, or what does all practical softwares do? What they do is they start with say not 1 initially, go and converge, okay, look at how it is converged, converge nicely, within 3 iteration you have converged, then it will double it, or in other words most softwares use variable steps. It will start with not 1, it will keep on varying the time step, it will go to say 0.005, not 5 convergence is very good, then it will go to not 1 convergence is very good, it will go to 0.1 and so on. So, in other words, this helps in optimizing the time required to solve the problem. Is it clear? It helps in optimizing the time required for solving the problem, and hence we have what is called as a time step. Is it clear? We have what is called as a time step here. If it is load, it is difficult to handle, for the software to handle. Best thing is to say that I will, next step I am going to apply 0.01, next step I will apply 0.02 and so on. It is easy to say that. Okay? So, load step and time step are synonymous, please note that. So, first step I start with a particular time step. So, I say that for that corresponding time step I have say delta F1, I apply the load. Okay, delta F1 applied. That is what I do. So, what is my next step? Okay, delta F1 for a multi-axial situation may be a vector, right, because in a problem you can have loads at different places. For a uniaxial problem it can be one particular load. Is it clear? So, what is my next step? Calculating? Yeah, but you are jumping. Okay. So, next step, calculate the error. Now, since we have started now, the error will be high, of course. So, calculate psi. Okay, that is my next step. Very good. So, what is my third step? Okay, check for convergence, right? That is what you said. I will change it later a bit, but nevertheless your steps are right. Check for convergence. Okay, check for convergence, that is the third step. That is the third step, check for convergence. If convergence has been achieved, okay, yes, go to 1, okay, go to 1. Is it clear? If no, we will put the correct one later in the next class, but let us, because your understanding will go up if you start thinking. If no, then you come to the step into the iteration loop, step 4. No means you go into the step 4. So, what is it that you do here? Iterate. Okay, fine. What is that you do here as a first step? Calculate KT. Very good. So, calculate KT. Right? Okay. What is it that you do afterwards? Calculate delta D. Delta D is also a vector. Okay. Now, I have to have a count, so I put an iterative count. Right? Okay. Then what do I do? What is the next step? 6. No, I have to calculate strain and stress and so on, because B transpose sigma is there, that is P. Okay, P minus F, B transpose sigma dV minus F. So, calculate sigma. Okay. Then go to step 2. That is why I said you can reorganize it in a better fashion. Go to Step 2. Go to step 2, calculate error, check for convergence. If yes, go back to 1. If no, come back again. Okay? Calculate this convergence, no convergence, get to do all this. Okay? In fact, sigma calculation is a very, very important step, okay, and is called as stress update. Stress update step. There's been a lot of research on stress update algorithms. Okay, so that is the next step that we have to concentrate on. Is it clear? Please put this in a better fashion, okay, in the sense that it's a much more appropriate fashion here. These are the steps, no doubt about it, so that we will discuss the next step of stress update in the next class. But there are certain issues here which I want you to keep in mind and think about it, okay, so that we will not lose track of what we are doing. For example, one of the things is that the stress should be properly updated so that the constitutive equation is correctly maintained and so on. So we will see about the stress update algorithm in the next class.